Good morning, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this Central Committee meeting number 31 of today, Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. I would like to give a special welcome to the representatives of Voice of Youth St. Maarten Foundation. We have established a quorum of 8 members. The Parliament of St. Maarten is saddened to learn of the passing of Acting Governor, Attorney-at-Law Reynold Groenewald. With this passing, St. Maarten has suffered a great loss. Mr. Groenewald was a proud St. Maartener who served his country in various capacities. He will be remembered as an educator, a respected attorney, acting lieutenant governor, and acting governor during the constitutional transition in 2010, and the first acting governor holding the fort during the absence of the governor. Mr. Groenewald was a great example of dedication and service to his family and the community of St. Maarten at large. He was an example of a humble servant of the people, always willing to assist and give advice to individuals as well as government. An individual who was always willing to share his time and knowledge when called upon. On April 19, 2022, Mr. Groenewald served as a member on the panel of experts during the expert roundtable discussion organized by the Parliament of St. Maarten, during which he shared his position on the Charter of the Kingdom of Netherlands, St. Maarten as a country within the kingdom, and decolonization. We, the Parliament of St. Maarten, extend our deepest condolences. Our prayers and thoughts are with his wife, Glenda Groenewald, his daughter, Angela Groenewald, extended family members, and the cabinet of the Governor of St. Maarten. May his soul rest in eternal peace. I would request you all to stand for a moment of silence of 1 minute. I have received notice of absence from the following members: MP Grisha Heiliger Maarten, MP William Allen, MP Rolando Bryson. Are there any other notifications? MP Angelique Rumu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good morning to you. A pleasant good morning to my colleague MPs. Pleasant good morning to the Voice of the Youth of St. Maarten Foundation here this morning. I too would like to extend my condolences to the family of the late Mr. Groenewald. Mr. Groenewald was like a mentor to me, and he had so much knowledge to share, especially when it came to education. And just 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting, and we were making plans. So when I heard the news yesterday, it really, really came as a shock to me. I know it's a shock to the entire population of St. Maarten, but for me, it came even, as a bigger shock. So to his family, his friends, those in the education field, those in the field of law, we have all lost a great St. Martiner indeed. And also to the family of the late Carlson Richardson, also a family member of mine, to Miss Emma, and to the nursing industry as well. You know, he was a nurse at the White and Yellow Cross for quite a while. Also lost another great St. Martiner. So my condolences go out to these two families. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rumo. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you, Rifir, the voice of the Youth St. Maarten Foundation, those joining us in the Tribune and online, and to my colleagues. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the PFP faction in Parliament, I would also like to extend our deepest condolences to the family of the late Acting Governor Reinhold Groeneveld. As my colleague MP Rumo mentioned, it was just 2 weeks ago that we had Mr. Groeneveld in here sharing his knowledge and history on the Kingdom Charter, a topic that we are continuing to discuss, and we will sorely miss his input as that discussion continues. And it brought me a special kind of sadness yesterday when I considered that just a few months ago at the unveiling of the governor's portrait, Mr. Groeneveld and I had a discussion where he mentioned that he was hoping now to get some peace and quiet to start working on his book. And now the reality is that we will not get that book. And it just highlighted again the importance of us noting down our stories, our experiences, getting the history and the knowledge from these titans and pioneers in our country before they unfortunately leave us. So again, my condolences to his family and friends, and indeed to the country on this great loss. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Gums. MP George Pantofler, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the Chair, my colleagues in Parliament, of course, Rifir, and our Voice of Youth St. Maarten Foundation members, and those that are following and listening. Mr. Chairman, I know that it will not be so fluid. We cannot exhaust what has happened with the loss of Mr. Reinhold Groeneveld. And as my colleague before me mentioned, definitely he is someone who will be surely missed. And, interestingly, last week we had a discussion. We were in the same supermarket. And, just like how males do, we go and pick up our stuff. We walk to the door one time, not like women that look all over the place. And in a discussion, I said, look, we have to meet again on this cohort and also this short-term contract abuse that is going on, because he was one of the ones that really supported National Alliance in drafting the draft initiative in order to deal with abuse of the short-term contract. And whenever Mr. Groeneveld was on a radio program or a TV program or whatever, the first thing I would do is get pen and paper, because I know once he starts to speak, the information that came forward was one that you could definitely depend upon, because he was also a lawyer by function. Definitely a very humble but strong individual. To his wife, Brenda, to his daughter, Angela, and to the rest of the Groeneveld family, his sisters and so on, and all those definitely who have come to know him. What he has done, what he has left behind, I do not think can be duplicated. Much strength to the family, and thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George. MP Sarah Westcott-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning to you, our staff, a good morning to my colleagues, a good morning to the guests here at Parliament representing the voice of our youth, and a good morning to all tuned into this meeting. Mr. Chairman, I want to join my colleagues and yourself in expressing condolences to, firstly, the wife and daughter of the late Acting Governor of St. Maarten, Mr. Reinhold Groeneveld, of course, his large circle of family and friends as well, his colleagues, and all with whom he have had contact professionally, personally, and I could go on. I could repeat a lot of things that were said regarding Mr. Groeneveld, but I do agree with all that has been said, especially the way, Mr. Chairman, that you were able to encapsulate in a very compact way the his contribution to St. Maarten. And as several speakers before me have indicated, the way that the late Mr. Groeneveld, Groen, as many persons called him, communicated, with persons, the way he shared his advices, his opinion. I mean, it was quite refreshing in this realm, because being acting governor, of course, he was touched by the politics. That's part of it. That's part of the role, and he was still able to maintain that neutrality and at the same time be softly forceful in the things that he wanted to get across. So, Mr. Chairman, like my colleagues and so many persons on St. Martin, when I heard the news, it was shocking. The way that it came to me was quite shocking as well. There's not often that I lose my composure, but yesterday was one of those times, for the simple reason that I could not completely understand what the family member was saying to me, and I found myself reacting, like, because you're hearing and you're not hearing, that kind of a thing. Anyhow, yes, so it was, I shared a feeling that it was quite shocking. So my thoughts and prayers go out to his family and all those he left behind. And I also want to join in extending condolences to the mother and other family members of the late Carlson Richardson. And he too, a dear friend, a great professional in the area of nursing, with a true caring nature and heart for people. So to his family too, I extend my sincerest condolences, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for the opportunity. In fact, Mr. Chairman, before closing off my few words, there are so many persons on St. Martin who during this period of time are touched by tragedy and loss, and there is this permeating feeling of a sense of loss in so many areas for so many families. And to those families, I want to wish much strength, and yeah, we just got to continue holding on and trucking forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah. The next person on the list is MP Richardson. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the young people here this morning. And good morning to St. Martin. And there's two persons in the tribune. Good morning to you. Mr. Chairman, it's a sad moment for all of us in St. Martin and practically the rest of the Antilles and the Netherlands. I know Groeneveld from a little kid. He used to visit us, my mom and my sisters, at St. Peter's. So it's really touching. I was driving on L.B. Scott Road yesterday when I got the news that he passed away. And I want to say we have worked in different capacities in the past. The transition to achieve 10-10-10, he was very instrumental in that, and also putting our Constitution together. He was a great man, a very approachable person, down to earth. And anyone could have reached him, talk to him, and get information, valuable information from him for no cost. I want to extend my deepest sympathy from my family and the National Alliance Party to his wife and his daughter, and the Governor of St. Martin, Mr. Eugene Holliday, and the Cabinet, and to the entire population of St. Martin. I'd like to also extend our sympathy of this great loss of Mr. Groeneveld yesterday. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Richardson. The next person I have is MP Solange Duncan. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A good morning to you. Good morning to the FIFIR. Good morning to my colleagues here in Parliament. A good morning to our representatives from the St. Martin Youth Brigade, and of course a good morning to the people of St. Martin. I would also like to, of course, join my colleagues in sending much strength and comfort to the family of Mr. Groeneveld. It was my honor to host him at the round table that we had here some time back. And it also made me think of the importance in echoing MP Gums's remarks in us not only documenting our history, but hearing the stories from those who have paved the way, especially for us in here. It is so important for us to not only recognize those who have contributed their whole lives to the development of St. Martin, but also ensure that their ideas and their words are preserved. And so I just wish the family and the whole of St. Martin much condolences, and thank you.
Thank you, MP Duncan. I think MP Richardson needs the floor again. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The impact of the loss of Mr. Groeneveld have been much on me. And I just also want to take this opportunity, which I should have done when I had the mic a while ago, to extend our condolences to Mr. Colson Richardson family on the passing of a great young gentleman who I knew when I was commissioner, came into work at that time, and a great St. Martiner, someone who cares for the people and also care for the people he take care of. I just want to extend to his mother and his rest of his family our deepest condolences. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Richardson. I would also convey my sincere condolences on the behalf of the UP party. I knew Mr. Groenewald, I believe, from the days when Carl and Sons used to be at the airport, and I had a very personal rapport with him too. So I really am feeling very down on hearing this news yesterday, and much strength to the family and friends. May he have eternal peace. Thank you. We have as an agenda point for this meeting, presentation on enhancing special surroundings and environment through the obstacle course and our youth in St. Martin under IS/812/2021-22 dated April 19, 2022. We go over to the agenda point. On April 19th, 2022, Parliament received a letter from Voice of the Youth St. Martin Foundation with the request for an audience with the Central Committee of Parliament to discuss the aforementioned agenda point. This document is registered as incoming document IS/812/2021-22 dated 19th April 2022 and can be found on the P drive of Parliament. Hence today this meeting. At this time, I would like now to give the floor to Ms. Zuleika Peterson, founder of the Voice of Youth St. Martin, for some introductory remarks and presentation. Ms. Peterson, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My gratitude to be here, honorable parliamentarians, Mr. Chairman. We also felt an immense shock yesterday when we received the news from the passing of Mr. Groenewald, taking into account that we work with Mr. Groenewald in the capacity of his photographer when he's replacing the governor, and also him attending the events of the St. Martin Youth Brigade when the governor is off island. So for us also, it touched us deeply. We had a difficult time processing the news. So hereby, as the representative of Voice of the Youth St. Martin, we also would like to extend our condolences to his family and also to the community of St. Martin at large, because he's a St. Martiner and we are all affected by his passing. Nevertheless, I would like to thank the body of parliamentarians for accepting our invitation to enable us to present our vision for this organization, and also to see where we can collaborate further or get support from Parliament in order to execute our yearly plans, or I should say our vision. So without further ado, I would like to present to my right Mr. Peterson, Michelle Peterson, who is the assistant project leader, and Mr. Jean O'Neill Blaze, better known as Nelly, as the project leader, who is going to take over the presentation, and I will most probably jump in here and there where I feel if any misinformation has been left out. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, parliamentarians, for this opportunity as well. Before I start the presentation, I would just like to briefly introduce myself for those who do not know me. My name is Nelly Blaze, and I come from St. Maarten. Recently returned a year and some months ago to St. Maarten with a master's in business administration and certificate in executive coaching and neurolinguistic programming. I was also part of the national judo team of St. Maarten, where I won a bronze medal, and I'm also an award-winning writer. And today I want to talk to you about a very important vision, mission that we have for St. Maarten, our law enforcement, and also the youth and the community at large. I'll leave the space for my colleague, Mr. Peterson, to introduce himself.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of Parliament. Good morning to those in the Tribune, and good morning to the public of St. Maarten. My name is Michelle Peterson. I am the Assistant Project Leader at the Voice of Youth St. Maarten. Also born and raised on St. Maarten, I left back in 2013 to pursue a degree in marine biology, and I obtained that in 2019 with also a minor in chemistry. Since being back, I've worked for various businesses, but I've never had so much joy for working for the Voice of the Youth St. Maarten. So it's an honor to be here to explain you guys our project. So moving on to the second slide. Oh. Thank you. So here, I'll just be talking about what exactly we'll be discussing today. For our introduction, we'll be talking about who are we as an NGO, our success stories within the NGO, our mission and vision of both the organization as well as the project at hand, what is the problem and qualitative insights, the bigger picture, the benefits, and the signed endorsements as well, and a few closing words by our project leader and Ms. Zuleika. So the Voice of the Youth St. Maarten was started back in 2013 with the goal to address the lack of social and educational programs here on St. Maarten. And this is something we've actively done with the implementation of the St. Maarten Youth Brigade. We've established effective communication amongst our members through our leadership training and helping them create a positive self-image for themselves. We also help to develop them socially, economically, governmentally, and in cultural areas as well. This has been done with our diverse educational programs, like our mentorship training, our paramilitary training, which is both physically demanding and mentally challenging, our youth empowerment, which ties into our paramilitary training with the kids, as well as our language lessons, which currently we are teaching Spanish. In the past, we've taught Dutch. Our civic participation. So when we do have discussions in class about major topics that are affecting St. Maarten, this is something we actively go in the community to voice our opinions and help get the word out. For example, in the past, we've worked with the Regreening Project to clean up trash in our communities, because Oftentimes, there's a lot of beach cleanups that are done. However, there's very few instances where community-based cleanups are done. So you can get the public more, especially those in different communities, to understand the problem about plastic pollution, not only on the beach, but in the different communities as well. Restorative justice. When we talk about restorative justice, we're talking about giving those youths a second chance. Those who have been through hard times, who have faced maybe some small youth delinquencies, that are able to come into the program to make something better for themselves with the tools that we provide them at the St. Martin Youth Brigade. Holistic health. We have nutrition classes that are done at the brigade. This is something that is very important for us, as well as the physical training that is done with the brigade members. And I think the overarching goal is the youth development, development of our youth on St. Martin. And in talking about the organization, I think it's important for us to shed light on how the program has transformed these members. And I believe sharing success stories is a great way to do so. And it also shows the products of success of the organization. So it helps us to provide visibility, credibility, and clarity of the value of the organization and those who make it successful, like our project leader, Ms. Zuleika, our coaches, our staff, our mentors, the entire team. Because without them, this project would not be where it is today, especially our interns. So I remember when I first started working at the brigade, there was a higher ranked member who was on his way out a couple months before I came. And he stood out to me on the first day when he approached me, as a young, respectable individual, and asked me if I'll be taking over the previous project leader's role at the St. Martin Youth Brigade. And I didn't have much time to shadow the previous project leader as she was preparing to leave. So there was a lot of skepticism within myself and within the members for me starting in a new position. And when he asked me if I'll be starting, I replied yes. And to my surprise, he said, "Well, we're glad to have you on board." And to me, that stood out as a person who he doesn't know and is welcoming into the organization. And I was quite honestly shocked, as most of the members had a strong relationship with the previous project leader. And I knew that would have been something hard to overcome for myself and for them. But not for him. Just based off of his character alone, I could have seen what the type of man he was, or the type of young individual he was standing in front of me. And when it got closer to his leaving date, the stories that I was hearing from brigade members and staff of how he was when he first joined the organization was a 180-degree switch from the gentleman that was standing in front of us today. So it just made me think, where would he be if it was not for the organization or programs like the St. Martin Youth Brigade? And I'm saying all this to say that when we push members to be the best that they want to be, it's not necessarily in law enforcement. It can be in any field that they want to be. However, our primary focus is to make sure to push them, give the fuel to the fire that they need to be successful. So some of our success stories, besides the individual I was mentioning, who is now in VEVA, which is the Dutch military school in the Netherlands, we have students who went on to the U.S. Army, who is also in university. We have a member who is studying culinary arts in the Netherlands. We have Sergeant Major Carter, who is in the Coast Guard currently and should be finished in August. We have Sergeant Fabrielle, who is recently joined the police force and she's doing her uplading. And we have Major Long, who works in the cabinet of the governor.
I also would like to add, we have a brigade member, last name Mills, who is in the Netherlands studying sports management. And we also have one in England. What's his name again?
King.
Yeah, King, who is doing, who actually is specializing in boat building in England. So those are just a few that we kind of stay in touch with and know of their career path. But we also have a few that, actually we have one brigade member who started 9 years ago with us as our part of our own first recruit, and she presently has her own business. So just to give an example of a few of our success stories.
Apologies that I did not mention it previous, but being as we are only about 2 years within the organization, these are only the success stories that we know. Like Ms. Zuleika said, there are many more success stories that came before us. Thank you.
It's important for us to talk about the mission and vision of any organization, but it's very important for us to discuss the mission and vision of the obstacle course in alignment with the St. Maarten Youth Brigade. I will briefly state our mission and our vision, and I will explain to you why it's important for us to have the obstacle course. The mission of the St. Maarten Youth Brigade is the development of youth in social and cultural and governmental areas, and to provide holistic educational prowess in well-being, reduce inequalities, climate action, and STEM education. The vision that we want for the St. Maarten Youth Brigade to have on the society of St. Maarten is as follows: to contribute to a peaceful, well-governed society and enable environment where youth inclusion is a priority, improving the quality of life for our citizens of St. Maarten, and decreasing disease by encouraging a healthy lifestyle. This will also increase positive social action and interaction between our communities and provide long-term economic prosperity. I find it important as a project leader of the St. Maarten Youth Brigade to empower our youth, to give them ownership of this island, and also to have them participate in their civic duty to give back to the community of St. Maarten. And that's what we're doing at the St. Maarten Youth Brigade. Our obstacle course is an even, I would like to say it's in alignment with the St. Maarten Youth Brigade vision and mission. I'll briefly mention the mission, which is to amplify the law enforcement and first responders' aptitude by providing exceptional physical training, and the vision in order for us to establish that, our overarching vision. The obstacle course is an extension that will proliferate physical and cognitive development that transitions our youth and law enforcement to proud, productive citizens of St. Maarten. I would like to ask the Honorable Chairman, as well as our parliamentarians, in your expertise, what do you think a law enforcement institute should have as a professional industry? The overarching principle, of course, for any law enforcement institution is to contribute to a peaceful and well-governed society, protecting its citizens. And in order for a professional institute to conduct that, they will need a professional facility in order for them to negotiate obstacles, respond to emergency services, and also train elite top prospects for their program.
So what is the problem, specifically when it entails to the obstacle course project? There is no professional recruitment and examination facility that enables law enforcement and emergency services to select leading prospects and improve current personnel, like Mr. Blaze said. So for most entities on the island, there isn't a facility that caters to the simulations that is needed within their organization. And this is something we're looking to achieve or change. Yes, we do have a shooting range for the police force. However, when we spoke to the chief of police in a previous meeting that we had last year, the only training or physical training that is done is in the initial recruitment of the police force, which part of it is done in Curaçao. And not essentially, there isn't a sustainable upkeep of their physical fitness on St. Maarten. And this is something that he explained to us, that you can clearly see that a lot of law enforcement is maybe not like in the physical fitness that it should be, on St. Martin. So this is something we're looking to improve here on St. Martin. And it may be not just only the police force, but other law enforcement entities, and especially emergency services like the fire department, who need an adequate facility to train. The lack of qualified health facilities for sports and leisure events that include competitions, team building, and law enforcement seminars. So especially when it comes to team building activities, this is something that is a critical component of the obstacle course. Without the team building and the communication, there isn't effective navigation through the obstacle course. And this is something that's critical when you are in a search and rescue situation or different situations or scenarios. And the inadequate management of land supplies and issues surrounding it. Explain.
In order for me to explain this better, there's opportunity for the St. Martin Youth Brigade to conduct and create a professional institute for law enforcement and for the youth of St. Martin. However, we do need the cooperation of our government. And with the support of our government, we can achieve this goal. And we will explain further on how we can work together with the government and with your support, how we can achieve this goal for our law enforcement. I always like to look at the bigger picture. I think it's important for us to have a roadmap of success for this nation. When talking about professional training for our law enforcement, just going to a gym is not adequate. If you have any expertise in paramilitary, military, or law enforcement, you know you need a qualified institute and facility to train for any possible crisis or catastrophe or impending hurricanes that are regularly approaching us in the Caribbean region. Therefore, this obstacle course is the answer to the solutions to the problems that we face, and a professional institute that connects our law enforcement, the business community, and also our residents is something that we see as a mission critical objective of this nation. This obstacle course will not only be a facility for our law enforcement, but it will also be an empowering institution for a well-structured, organized law enforcement for our nation.
In addition, this obstacle course is also there for our community. So we keep putting a lot of emphasis at times about law enforcement, but think about it. What about if we all meet 5 o'clock afternoon at this course and challenge ourselves? When we're talking about this, it reminds me of meeting our MP, Sarah Westcott, at 5 a.m. in the morning doing circuit training. So think about that. That is not just law enforcement, but it's also for our own benefit.
Thank you. As Zuleika mentioned, it is important for team building. But I would like to start with a premise that will help this nation. We also had the idea to put into this obstacle course the installation of an early warning system for St. Martin. When living in this region where we're in a hurricane belt, it's important for us to establish a professional early warning system that we can monitor, that where law enforcement is actually training, they can utilize this information, the scientific research, in order for them to equip themselves to respond better. This will also allow us to send messages and alerts to our citizens. So this is also given back meaningfully to the community of St. Martin. And this is something that we can manage and create for the obstacle course. It's very important for us to also mention that with our youth of the St. Martin Youth Brigade, there will also be trainers that will be training citizens of St. Martin to come to this obstacle course in the green area that you're seeing. We'll explain more with our poster presentation. where the public of St. Maarten will come, be trained by young people to get more fit in order for them to decrease disease here on the island. As I mentioned before, the obstacle courses are empowering well-structured and organized operation for fit for duty, and it's also a qualified health facility for sports and leisure events. Something that I want to emphasize on and reiterate is a specialized physical institute for our law enforcement that is needed. I just want to make sure that you all see the benefits of the obstacle course and why it's important for our nation. Right now, we do not have this facility, and that's why we want to create it. I know there's going to be a lot of questions on how we're going to do this, and we're going to explain that more clearly when we're talking about the obstacle course, how we're going to get it funded, and how fast we're going to bring it to the public of St. Maarten and the utilization of that facility.
So when we started the technical analysis for this project, the biggest questions that we started with was why? Why the obstacle course? Why are we doing it? And we realized that the why isn't really for us, but it was for the community of St. Maarten. And this is the reason why we visited commanders and chiefs of the different law enforcement entities here on St. Maarten, which include the VKS, the Dutch Royal Marine Station here on St. Maarten, the fire department, the Coast Guard, the police force, KPSM, and most importantly, St. Maarten Youth Brigade. So we sat down with each entity on St. Maarten to see exactly what would be necessary for them to utilize in this obstacle course, and how are we able to combine that to have an obstacle course that can cater to all law enforcement agencies, the youth of St. Maarten, and the public. We have a signed endorsement from all law enforcement agencies, well, not all, but most law enforcement agencies here on St. Maarten, stating that they're in full support of the project after we did presented the technical analysis to them.
Mr. Chairman, we have a document that we would like to ask permission to share with the parliamentarians. And it's a document signed by all law enforcement agency showing their support and also input in the design of the obstacle course. Is it okay? Yeah. Yeah. As Mr. Blaze is sharing the document, I just want to give a brief explanation. When we came up with this project, and as Mr. Peterson was explaining, the first thing we did is we approached the various law enforcement agencies on the island to get a feeling and feedback from them and their input on how to move forward with this project. what are the things, what are the obstacles that they think should be included in the plan, and each law enforcement agency then submitted 2 type of obstacle that they would like to see included in the plans. After that, we move on to the design phase of the obstacle course that was actually done in in Belgium. Germany. And this obstacle course, actually, the person who designed it for us is, again, these young people sitting next to me. They have a lot of network system going on, so they always know someone, and it was actually done for free. So again, you know, kudos to them.
So talking about the land prospects, I would like to also provide more information about the design of the obstacle course, if I can provide more information about it. Yeah. We actually went out into the community of St. Martin for us to look for the design of the obstacle course. However, it was challenging because no one had the expertise on the island to build this obstacle course, and we wanted to work with someone local. And we saw that it was challenging, so we decided that we would design this obstacle course together with our network in Germany. So what you're seeing and what you're about to see with our poster presentation is an obstacle course that was made with the management of the St. Martin Youth Brigade. We put the design together, we put the obstacles together with the research advice that we got from the Dutch Royal Marines, VKS, and other law enforcement here on the island. And together with that information, we approached the architect in Germany and told them of our overarching principle, and we sat down in meetings together with the architect and designed this obstacle course from scratch. So this was a work conducted by St. Martiners that you're seeing in front of you right now. When talking about the land prospects, can I ask to put up the pictures? Yeah. When talking about the land prospects, before I hand it over to my colleague, Michelle, I would just like to mention that we have the opportunity in order for us to utilize government-owned property, and that's concerning Rainforest Adventures. We approached Rainforest Adventures, and they told us that they would like to help us because they believe in this vision. And we see the need for us to approach Parliament and ask for your support as well in order for us to establish this obstacle course for law enforcement, for the community, and for the youth as well. And
so talking about rainforest, one of the dilemma that we are facing with asking rainforest is that rainforest is actually, or has been in discussion with government to give back part of the properties, and that process is taking, well, longer than expected. And also, we do not have any commitment from government that if they do receive it back, that they can turn it over, at least the section that we need in order to execute the project, that they will turn it over to Voice of the Youth in order to execute our project. So basically, we are looking at something that we would hope that government say, okay, you know, this is really a project that we would like to see here in St. Martin, and this plot of land that we have in mind is the ideal slot, but again, there's no commitment from government on that matter.
As for the other land prospects, rainforest is the most ideal in terms of its location to the public, in terms of location for the different law enforcement agencies as well on St. Martin. There's also Hope Estate, which is owned by GB, Arch Road, the Ring Road that is in front of the zoo. There's the St. Martin Zoo as well. And there is a plot of land that is adjacent to Miss Lally Center. The Hope Estate land is also an ideal area. However, we've tried to get a meeting with GB. However, there has not been any response as to if we can have the meeting, yes or not. The Ring Road, which was, we went to Cadastre and we got basically a report of who the land is owned by. There isn't any, there's, I guess, talks of who the land may be distributed to, but there isn't anything by Cadastre that says at that time who the land was stated to. The St. Martin Zoo as well, we've had a discussion with them. However, due to the land being, how do you say? Go ahead.
Okay, so the issue with the zoo is that it is a government lot of land, and it was given for a botanical and zoological, I think, purposes. I know if, with the support of government and parliament, of course, that I'm sure that the purpose can be changed since they have no indication or any willingness to proceed or reestablish another zoo there. So with the help of government, it can be repurposed for what we are looking for. But again, the foundation that is currently in charge of the property, there's a little bit of, back and forth or no clear answer or commitment to anything. So therefore, again, we are in a limbo when it comes to also that lot because,
The last plot of land is the land adjacent to Miss Lally Center. It is not really ideal as it is just a little bit shy of the amount of land that is required for the obstacle course. And it doesn't give, in case it gives the obstacle course a space to grow if it does need to, for adding more obstacles if necessary.
One of the most pending questions, Mr. Chairman, that we know we will receive is the funding. And I would like to state and ask a question. If we told you that we can build this obstacle course not relying on government, but the funding of the World Bank, which will be monitored by NRPB and established by R4CR, I think that this would be a no-brainer. We already approached R4CR with our project, and we sat down with them to evaluate if it would be feasible, and we got good feedback. The only concern with our project was that we had no land. They would not fund a project without us having a signed commitment from our government stating that we have land for the obstacle course. So if you think about it, and I'm asking you this question right now, that we're willing to manage this facility for the government and for the community. We're willing to fund this project at no expense to the government at all. I would say, in my professional opinion, that it's a good idea to go forward. It's a progressive idea to go forward. If you have any more questions that you would like to ask, please do. If there's any more closing remarks that any of my colleagues would like to make.
So I also want to elaborate a little bit further. So this obstacle course is not only for St. Martin. Think about the economic revenue that can be derived from this obstacle course when, for instance, Anguilla law enforcement agency come over for training. Seba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis. So we are not just talking about St. Martin, but we are also talking about our neighboring islands. We even playing with the thought of having, for instance, cruise passengers, having them use some of the obstacle course. Of course, you have to be careful because safety is paramount. So we can also open up a section of it and make it a ecotourism or a sports tourism a facility. So not only is it helping with the training of law enforcement or keeping our community healthy, but there is also economic revenues that can be derived from this project.
Lastly, if I can add that this will make the organization more from a nonprofit to a social enterprise. This would also give other organizations and other new foundations an opportunity to access more funding where we will be more self-sustaining.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson, Michelle Peterson, Nellie Blaze, for your presentation. Now I would like to see which member of parliament would like to get the floor. Is MP Sarah Westcott Williams. MP Sarah, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, and allow me to start by expressing my appreciation and thanks for the presentation made by Mr. Peterson, Mr. Blaze, and Mrs. Peterson on behalf of the Voice of the Youth Foundation. Mr. Chairman, thank you once again, and I know I'm repeating what I said, but thank you for the presentation. I had a brief moment because it was shared with us before the meeting started, so we had a couple of minutes that I could have looked at it, and my first impression then, before hearing your further explanation, was wow. Mr. Chairman, I am tempted to kind of just jump to the last part of it and say, well, let the Parliament of St. Martin come with a motion and decide that this foundation should get piece of land. I'm ready to jump to that part because for the simple reason, and I say it often when persons come and in good faith to make a presentation to Parliament, and oftentimes it's actually because of the lack of feedback and results from government. And then you sit here as Parliament feeling a little helpless in terms of, okay, so what do we say? It's nice to hear, it's nice to have questions, but what do we say with the persons, not only your foundation, but others who sit here in front of us and feeling and with the hope that Parliament can tell the government, this is the way we would like you to go. I think in this particular case, the Parliament can make such a statement. So I wanted to put that out front first. Secondly, I am a proponent of decentralization, community decentralization. What do I mean with that? If we have in our country organizations equipped to handle an issue, to come up with a project that in essence is a public project, should be a public project, should be something that the government is running behind. But if we have the resources, the capabilities, etc., outside of government, I think what government should do is create the enabling environment for that project to materialize. I think this project would fall in under that caption in terms of it's a public good. Let me mention that. It's for a public good, and as such, government, I'm sure the government stands behind this idea. I can't speak for them, but I can't see them not standing behind it.
So, to answer that question,
I look at the chairperson.
Chair.
It's like just let me go ahead, and then you can, Mrs. Peterson, then you can make a note and then respond. So, but I feel that the government is standing behind the project, and because who would not would be my question. But I come back to letting it be done. If there is a possibility to do it outside. I believe that is why the R4CR is so successful in what they're doing, in what the different organizations are doing via the R4CR. But I'll get to that point in a moment. I believe it behooves the government, if it is not yet the case, to in a youth policy, whether it be with a link to justice, etc., have this idea, have this vision. The execution is what I mentioned earlier, I think should be left in the hands of, if we have the capacity outside of government to do it, that's where it should be. Of course, the matter of it being for more than just the law officials and the judicial sector, the issue, and I think one of the speakers mentioned it, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of individuals as well. And with a slightly another cap on than Member of Parliament, I can't but endorse this. I have been out there promoting movement and mobility for persons of all ages. It is so important for the health of this country. I also know, in connection here with, for example, having been involved in putting down the outdoor exercise equipment that many of them, along with the Positive Foundation, have found a place in the so-called community spaces. However, we were left with, I think at the end of the day, one more to be placed. And we have tried to move mountains. And of course, this is nothing close to what you projected there. This is just a few pieces of, those outdoor equipment, exercise equipment. And I don't want to call the business name because we're not out of the woods with them yet, but finally, after so much, look, and what did it have to do with? Location, a public piece of land here, there, what do you do, and all of those issues. So I can just imagine, based on that little example, what you're facing with this one in terms of getting the proper location, the ownership of the location, other visions for the location, etc., etc. So, but the part of it being also a community project, again, I can't but endorse it. Now I have a very specific question in terms of the operation and the management and the running of this facility. I'm already thinking of the facility being there because it regards law enforcement and the judicial sector. Are there any requirements? Have your research shown any requirements in terms of the management of it? If I see Mr. Blaze shaking his head, so I'm sure he understands my question, because it is that. It's not like a piece of exercise equipment that we want to put down. We put it down and then we put a disclaimer, use it at your own risk. And that's kind of the end of that, except for the upkeep that it would require. But because of the law enforcement aspect, is it something that has to be managed by, by a certain group? So that's my question. I started my brief presentation with mentioning a motion by Parliament. And Mr. Chairman, I really think that's how we should go. I know of the rainforest. I don't want to call it a debacle. I don't know what's really going on. I know of the the give back, take back, whatever have you, but these type of things can drag on for years, and secondly, if there is not earmarking, at the end of the day, there might be plans for it when when the issue is solved, and then we sitting there kind of keeping our fingers crossed, and then to hear, well, oh no, but actually we get it back, we want it back, we do whatever, to do X, Y, Z, So we need to be specific. It's more or less the same thing can be stated for Hope Estate and GB. There too, we are hearing different ideas and intentions. Government, GB, land. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Ring Road, another such an issue. What is it? How is it? Who is it? Who all? Who don't? I mean, I have just as many questions on these matters, like those who are looking at a specific location. So, So I think that Parliament, the Parliament should really get a grip on this thing, and then tell the government, just like we did for the government building. The Parliament building, my bad. Just like we did for the Parliament building, we said, the government had some intention for the land that was cleared here in Phillipsburg, and Parliament, because they want a new building, said, no, earmark that for the Parliament building. So I think, it is very well possible to, via motion, say, government, we know you got to do your thing, but earmark this. So that's my other comment. Then we have the matter of, I hear clearly in terms of what funding possibilities are there. As I told you before, because of I being very much in favor of decentralization, I am very supportive of this approach with R4CR. We have had presentations in here in terms of, how they have gone about working with all the different foundations, and at the same time, building capacity in terms of having persons, foundations, etc., step up to the plate to be able to manage a project and get a fountain and give account for the funding. However, my question in this regard is, fine, you put down the project, what about the operation of it once you have it there in terms of, I guess there would be, and if not, then that would be great. But I guess there would be a yearly budget for operation going forward. And what are the thoughts in that respect? And in addition to the presentation made here, the presenters have made some interesting comments with respect to the spin-off that this project can have. Spoke about a health one, economic one, being one for the surrounding islands. And has any projections been made in that respect and shared with government? One, and I'm sure, and I think that's what Mrs. Peterson started to answer when I asked the question. And this is extremely important for Parliament to know. What has been government's feedback thus far, in addition to the issue of land, which we're understanding has not been solved. And I think in finalizing my questions, so right now, would this foundation say that the obstacle for the obstacle course is actually finding a location? Would you say that doing all that you're doing, that right now today, in order for you to move a step forward with the R4CR, that's the main issue right now, if that can be confirmed? Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you while thanking those making the presentation once again. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott. I would like to just update Ms. Peterson that most of the MPs will put up their questions and you take a note of them. And once they are finished, then you can answer in each of them. The next person on the list I have is MP Melissa Gums. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning once again to everyone. And thank you to Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Blaze for the presentation. Whenever I hear about Youth Brigade and also now seeing kind of the vision, it reminds me of like JROTC and ROTC in the US, which is, as you know, US Army funded and sponsored. So that's kind of the idea or the vision that I see then when I see this obstacle course. And I think, as well as what MP Westcott said, I'm a big fan of just letting those who have the knowledge do the thing. I don't believe that government has to take everything in-house. With that being said, you mentioned that you spoke to Rainforest Adventures, but has there been any feedback or have you communicated with VRAMI about that case? Because you have the feedback from Rainforest, but is there anything from the actual ministry responsible? Regarding the GB land, as MP Westcott said, we've been hearing many things about certain plans for that land, and I know that the last I remember, GB was going to be using it to build a much needed storage facility so that they can stop renting where they currently are. So maybe that's why that may not be an option. But the cost you less spot that you have in the other document that you sent, you mentioned it's owned by the Vlons, but has there been any discussion with the Vlons regarding that? Because at least that's what I see here in next to the cricket field. Yeah, because that's about it for me, because I already understood from the presentation that the main obstacle here is the location. I think it's pretty clear to us that we have limited land, we're on 16 square miles, but I am a firm proponent of allocating where necessary, because every cycle we hear that we need this, we need that facility, this facility, and indeed there is no official shooting range either, it's just by the quarry. And these are the things that we need if we want to say that we're going to have a police force, a VKS, et cetera, that's taken seriously. So again, I applaud you guys on the technical work you've already done. It's very refreshing to see the project literally 98% there, and this is the little 2% that I hope Parliament can help with in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. The next person I have is MP Ludmila D. Weaver.
Thank you,
MP
Mr.
Ludmila,
Chairman.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you, my colleagues, to Ms. Peterson, Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Blaze, and as well as I believe you said you had your interns here with you in the Tribune, so good morning to you as well. Thank you for this fantastic presentation. Anyone who had the opportunity to go to the Youth Brigade promotional ceremony on Friday would have been greeted with a sight that probably gave you goosebumps, because it gave me goosebumps. And I mean, I'm already like, my voice is already trembling because it was the most amazing thing. And as I sat next to MP Gumsey, I said, this is such an incredible thing to see. So to see the young people, and including young adults, be there together, to see the ceremony that you prepared, I can only imagine what you do in your everyday functioning of this Youth Brigade and this foundation. And with that being said, I definitely will second the statement mentioned by MP Westcott Williams, where she said we should bring a motion to Parliament, because this is something that we shouldn't pass up. And I would for sure have that, you would for sure have my support in that motion of making government find a place to it. A few seconds ago, I got up and I went to MP Peterson to ask, you've been teaching me some things about how the Ministry of VRAMI works. And I know, that's exactly why I got up. I mean, he's laughing here at me now, because the first thing that I thought about was what he was teaching me last week, where he said, if the land that is given isn't used, and I'm saying something that might maybe upset some people, but for this kind of project, it's worth it. And it's what I learned was, if land isn't put to use when it has been assigned, that it could be taken back and reassigned. And why I said that it's something that might make me unpopular is because I know no one wants to hear that, but there's a lot of instances of when that happens. And you can imagine the alternative of not providing something to a foundation such as yours is really unfortunate. So MP Peterson, I did not mean to take your limelight. That was the first thought that came out of my head, and I hope you repeat it when you get the chance to talk right now today, because it's something that everyone should hear. We have an opportunity today for you to be on the public stage to explain and share with the rest of St. Maarten, not just Parliament, the importance of what you are doing. And that's why I think everything should be repeated that all of the MPs have said earlier on today. With that being said, I will get specific. Mr. Chairman, I will ask you if it's okay, because I just have one question, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question that I would like to see if I can get an answer straight away now, and then continue with my comments. Would that be okay? It's just one question that I have to Mrs. Peterson, just to see how I will continue. It's a simple question on part of their presentation when it came to the land.
If it's a yes, no, or
Exactly.
something,
Yes, no question.
yeah, I will allow that.
It's a yes, no question, but I'm not even going to go into that because then I'll take time. In the presentation that you gave us with the options of land, you listed some items in there, and it said that you have to take noise and light pollution into consideration. And what I wanted to know is it noise and light? Do we have to take it into consideration because the obstacle course will be making noise, or is it because you want to be in an area where you don't have noise and light pollution? So I saw you nodding, so I guess it's because some noises will be coming out, right? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP DeWeaver. The next person I have is MP
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Solange.
sorry, I just wanted to see if I could get the answer one time. 'Cause
Oh, I thought he nodded.
No, I did have to, I didn't, did you have anything else to say? Because I am not done yet, sorry.
Okay, let me give the floor to Ms. Michelle Peterson. Michelle Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to answer MP DeWeaver. The light pollution is in concern to both environmental, so animals in the area, as well as residents of the area. So this is why we have a breakdown of the most ideal locations versus those that are not ideal, taking into account all of these factors. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Peterson. MP DeWeaver, you have any further questions, or?
Nope, I think that is it.
You're
Thank
done.
you. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
MP DeWeaver. The next person I have is MP Solange Duncan. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also through you, a huge thank you and much gratitude to the foundation. I also too was at the promotion ceremony, and I was extremely impressed with what I saw. What is so incredible about organizations like Voice of the Youth is just this incredible interconnectedness, right? We're talking health, we're talking justice, personal integrity, which we see is so important moving forward in this country, personal and professional integrity. How are we ever going to change the way things operate in this country if we are not teaching our young people to not only be responsible for themselves, but for this island? So I also to kind of get a little emotional as well. And I commend the organization for their dedication and hard work. When I looked at the obstacle course, or after just experiencing the whole presentation, I went back to when I started in government working for the Ministry of Justice. We started, and I look at the assistant greffier because we were in a cabinet together. First Ministry of Justice setting up the Justice Academy and saying we are going to have a facility here that are going to train local law enforcement officers, and the vision that we had, and it not coming to fruition. But this is the kind of, well, not fully then, this is the kind of project that is so necessary, not only for our law enforcement agencies, but also for our people, as was stated in the presentation. This here is buy-in. This is everyone saying, we need it. We need this facility. We need it for our professionalism, to improve our health. It's a no-brainer. Like Mr. Blaze said, it is a no-brainer. All that is necessary, or all that is required, is a piece of land. You have already pointed out pieces of land that can be used. So to me, there is nothing that should stop this project, honestly, if we look at the impact that it can have. The only question that I have is if the proposal that was presented at the promotion ceremony to the two ministers is actually this proposal, and if the foundation has already spoken to, even informally, to the Department of Sports and NSI, because I also look at it as being a part of the greater sports industry. And a motion passed here during the budget debate in January, asked the minister to come back with a state of sports report. And I would assume that this would also be something that adds to that, a facility that trains, that assists in sports development, in health development. So that is it for me, and I thank the foundation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Duncan. The next person I have is MP Peterson. MP Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A good afternoon, good morning still to my colleagues and to the Youth Brigade for your presentation, and to the interns and everybody else tuned in. First of all, thank you guys for the presentation. It was very informative, and of course, I do share the sentiment of my colleagues. In regards to the government land issue, that's kind of my area of expertise, and I kind of want to give you guys some, kind of brainstorm as to how to proceed. For example, when we mentioned the rainforest land, I believe that land was given in long lease to them about 8 years ago, and the issue that they had is because the land was too big, they had issues with paying the canon. And therefore, since 5 years ago, they've been in contact with government for basically to find a solution for that, because they cannot afford to pay that high of a long lease whilst they are not using 90% of the land. To that extent, I think that government should have been proactive as to limiting the land that was given off. That's first. But also to allocate something like this for the Youth Brigade is easy. As a minister of Romy, because it's government land, so it doesn't even have to be a long lease contract. It can also be a rental agreement. It can just be a long lease with a symbol price of maybe like 0 guilders per year. Do you understand where I'm going with that? So, to my opinion, this is something that government can facilitate. To my opinion, it's also very easy. But of course, you do have the issue that it is in the long lease of a certain company at the moment, and because the long lease is governed by civil law, they also have rights, as per the judge as well. So we can't just move in on it as government. But I do agree that we can motion it. We can motion it because it is a government asset. It's government land. And if it is not being paid for at the moment, then I think that government needs to be proactive on that. When it comes to the zoo, same thing. Like MP De Weaver just mentioned, when land is given in long lease to a person or an entity or whoever, the intention is to use the land for the purpose that it is given. So whether it's for a zoo or for botanical gardens, as it were, or to build a building, that needs to happen because government gives long lease land out with the intention for the long lease holder to add value to the land of government, which is the government asset. That is a condition that is in the long lease as well, and that is something for the Minister of Romy to enforce. So like MP De Weaver said, you have a lot of pieces of long lease land at the moment that are not built on. To my personal and professional opinion, all of those pieces should be looked into, and government should look into taking those pieces back and giving those in long lease to prospective long lease holders within the community who can build and can add value to the government asset, which is government land. To that extent, I do not know what the plan is with the zoo, but we as Parliament can also be proactive as to finding out if the canon is being paid, for example, and what the purpose is of the land and whether it's being used for that purpose. Because if it's not, then the Minister of Romy can act proactively and call them up. Because by the end of the day, people forget that government is the owner of the long lease parcel, and you need to abide by the conditions given in the long lease decree. So I think that we as Parliament, if we do our due diligence, contact Cadastre, maybe ask the Minister some information from receivers, we can actually, bring a motion forward that can actually be tangible and will not get lost. Coming back to the land that is required, I saw the presentation and I was wondering what is the total estimated square meters that is needed, the total size for such a project. Because although we're only looking at government land, more than 50% of St. Maarten is actually private land. So while we know that government can facilitate, in the case that government is lacking, and in this case I do find government is lacking, we can also look at private landowners, and for them to sublease a certain size of land, and we have very big pieces of succession land around St. Maarten, so we can look. We also can be proactive. And we can also look on private landowners, see if that's a possibility, you know. But then we would have to bring a good project with the size, with the right amount, you know. We would have to actually have government help us in regards to building, if there's a hindrance permit that's needed, etc. You know. So I think that this is something that we, if we have, you know, a separate meeting outside of Parliament, we can actually move forward with this. So that was just my my 2 cents to the matter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Peterson. The next person I have is MP Rumu. MP Rumu, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, and once again, pleasant good afternoon, well, good morning still, to our guest here this morning, the Youth Brigade. I too just want to join with my colleagues in extending my greatest gratitude to you for what you're doing for the youth of St. Maarten. I believe on Friday was your 9th anniversary, and it just shows that you are doing an excellent job when we see the amount of youngsters that have passed through your organization and those who are abroad and coming back to still give of their time and their expertise towards what you're doing for the youth of St. Maarten. I want to applaud you and ask you to continue to work with and on behalf of the youth of St. Maarten, because such organizations is well needed, and we see the fruit of your labor. I was quite pleasantly surprised at the ceremony on Friday when I spoke to some of the officers who were moved up in ranks, and you know, I was asking them, you know, how did you join? Did you join because your parents wanted you to, or was it because, you know, discipline and you know how parents are? If you're not, if they can't reach you, they find a way to get you to be in line with what they want you to be. And most of the youngsters that I spoke to actually volunteered to join, and I think that says something about the organization. You know, so I just wanted to commend you on the great work that you're doing. And on the obstacle course, I think I share the sentiments of all of my colleague MPs, where that it's much needed, and that indeed, if it has to be done via motion, I know for sure that you will have all of our support in Parliament. When you gave the presentation, you also spoke about the most ideal plot of land would be that of the rainforest. I can see why in terms of its location, its size, and so forth. And so I just have one question in terms of, you know, you mentioned that you had already spoken to these persons, but what is, if they're showing the interest, what would be the holdup? Because as MP Peterson said, they already hold a long lease, so then it would basically be an agreement, I guess, that could be made between your organization and those who already have it, and of course government. And then of course I'm looking forward to your answer in terms of, have you already had the opportunity to speak with those who are already in there in terms of government when it comes to being able to obtain the land? That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rumu. The next person I have is MP George. MP George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning again. Thank you very much for the presentation. Excellent presentation. Mr. Chairman, when it comes to such a facility, I can join my colleagues and say that it's a no-brainer. It's needed. What has always amazed me, and I worked for many years at the Immigration Department, was the fact that I noticed that there was no training, physical training for police officers, in a sense where it came to self-defense. And some of my colleagues who I worked with prior might feel that, you know, I'm kind of embarrassing them, but the fact was that I always felt it very strange that if you're going to be a police officer, you would not always have a chance to use your weapon. In other words, you get involved in a hand-to-hand combat. What do you do then? What do you do then? So I think it's very important that this takes place, and that, of course, they get the proper training in order to ensure that whenever they're faced with whatever situation, they can defend themselves. With regards to the location, Mr. Chairman, definitely it is needed, as I said before. What I don't want the impression to be created, however, is that it's, like you ask for it today, you get it tomorrow. I believe the question posed by colleagues of mine with regards to has the government been approached about this facility, that's the key issue. Because as we heard, every area, every location has its own challenge, and whatever government does has to be based on the law. What does the law say about that particular situation as to what has to take place in order for government to either seize it or take it back or whatever? But we have to be sure that it is not that government can just say, yes, this is the land, this is not going on, X, Y, Z, and you take the land or whatever. We have to know exactly what the circumstances are, and key again was the government approached with this project in order to find exactly whether there's land available, yes or not, and how can government make that land legally without any legal consequences. How can government make that land available to the institution? Because I believe, as I said, it is needed, for sure. Something was mentioned during the presentation, Mr. Chairman, which I always find interesting, is the matter of the cleanup that I think that was done by the organization. And I'm using this instance to say, Mr. Chairman, that, when it comes to cleaning up, people think that organizations should come and do it for them. For instance, I live in South Reward. I should not wait for someone from Phillipsburg to come and clean up my area or some organization. Keep your own area clean. Keep your area clean. And that's what I want to say now, that people can listen, because the fact is, too often I'm hearing that organizations have to organize cleanup campaigns because why? Particular districts, areas, people just throw the garbage outside the door or throw it next to the garbage can instead of in the garbage can, and so on. So that is an individual thing that people have to look at their own behavior where that's concerned. But back to the matter of the facility, I think it's definitely needed. Question was asked concerning the cost. I already said I wouldn't ask that question. One topic came with regards to reducing inequalities. I didn't get too good as to in what frame was that mentioned, where it is said that they're trying to reduce inequalities. And let me see. I like the issue of team building, because it's important that one realizes you can't do it alone. Any organization, any institution, whatever project you want to do, it has to be a team. Somebody has to lead, somebody has to follow, but we have to have the same goal in mind. So I believe that facility would be given for sure. But again, there's some legal aspect that has to be followed, and I believe that once that is in place, that this facility definitely will become a reality. And I wish you much success in this very important venture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George. I have MP Ludmila D. Weaver would like to take up. MP D. Weaver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I need to make sure I clarify myself, especially from the previous statements just now made. At no point did I say government should go seize anyone's land, so I just wanted to make sure. I was just saying what I learned from our former colleague who is in Vromi about the use of long lease land. If long lease land is given to someone and it's not used, something has to be done with it. Especially if you get to the situation where people aren't paying their erfpacht on it, that's a whole different situation. So at no point was the purpose or my message about seizing people's land. So let me just state that again. It was about the importance of this project. This project is something that for 9 years, I hope to God, that government knows about this has been going, because it's been in existence for 9 years. So if nothing was done by government, again, use this opportunity, which is exactly why you have been invited here today, which is why you are here, basically appealing to Parliament, appealing to the Council of Ministers, appealing to the public, to the community, that this is something that is urgently needed. It's not something that we play politics with. It's something that we are doing where we're investing in our youth. With that being said, I want to go on to basically double up on conversations or comments made today. The police themselves, in conversation with them, have, when it comes to financing, When it comes to gym use, there is a shortage of it. There is a deficiency in it. So that's why this is very much needed. You can see from the letter that you all have provided to us of who is supporting this, why it's urgent. So I hope the conversation continues with the Minister of Justice, with the Minister of Education, and everybody else, with the Prime Minister, Algemene Zaken, because the fire department comes under her. In addition to that, I will say that I have sent emails WhatsApp messages to private property members, as was mentioned before also by other MPs, especially for the neighborhoods of Dutch Quarter. So I have sent messages out today. I am not saying that it comes with a guarantee, but here also I will be sending messages out to people who have flat land over in the Cold Bay area, because there's a lot of space, and that's why I asked you all earlier on, what did you mean exactly by noise pollution and light pollution? If it was something that was going to deter your project from happening, or if it's something that you needed to make sure you accommodate for in it. Now, when I look at your land prospects between Rainforest Adventures, Hope Estate, Arch Road, St. Martin's Zoo, and Miss Lally Center, the environment, the neighborhood in terms of what is there, so it's residential as well as partly commercial for the most part. It's very similar to Dutch Quarter area on the way to Oyster Pond. I know that you kind of border with French side, but I'm also putting it out there for the people and families that have property there that they should consider approaching you or vice versa. That is it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP De Wever. Now I have MP Richardson. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Say something just before me.
MP George, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just got to make a clarification. In my statement, I said government just can't seize land. Definitely, that's a fact. But let me say this also. I think government should seize land in certain instances. And why do I say this? My personal experience where I live, between myself and a neighbor of mine, there's a plot of land that has been there for 38 years. And nothing has been built on it. So I think in that case, government has a right to seize the land based on whatever procedures are available. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
George, I now give the floor to MP Richardson. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also want to echo sentiments like my colleagues, thanking the youngsters here today, the St. Martin Voices, for the hard work they have been doing in the community. And I am grateful for that to our youngsters. The letter that you gave us, I think, speak volumes. Speak volumes. You have maybe more than 2 different entities or institutions who are saying, we need this. So I'm seeing this as a win-win-win for your foundation. You just have to use it correctly, and you will be successful. To me, logistics is very important. In the St. Peter's cul-de-sac basin, there's so many things happening and taking place there. So I also want you all to consider that, because it's over congested already. You can't drive to town from St. Peter's in the morning. It's not easy getting out to St. Peter's. I have to go through it every day, and every citizen who takes the kids to that area, St. Peter's, South Ward area, have to go through it every single day. I will suggest that also to you, a proposal I'll say right here now, is to get in contact also with the Plans family down in Belvedere. I know these kind of projects, they will sit with you and discuss this with you, and they might be successful there. I also want to ask if you have taken this up with the French side government, because this can be a very good joint venture. And I will propose that also to you. If you didn't, to try your best to take it up. The size of the land was just asked already by, I think, MP Peterson, so I will not ask that question again. And the operational cost was asked by another colleague, I think it was Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams. I had a note of that. So I will not ask that question also. But I just asking you to look at the Pan family, have a discussion with them, sit down with them to see what's the possibilities there. Because in the past we had many discussions with them, putting similar projects. And they will be open to discuss this with you. I would like to say you have done a lot of civic work. Just ask you to continue to do your work. And I will ask you to have a meeting with government, especially the Minister of Romi, and discuss this topic of this project. I thank you for being here today. It was worthwhile listening to you and the things you're doing for the community of St. Maarten. I thank you.
Thank you, MP Richardson. I have now MP Ludmila de Weaver. She would like to take it for the third time. You have the floor.
I promise, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I promise I am not a representative of the youth of St. Maarten, but I would be actually honored to be part of it. But I just wanted, because a couple MPs mentioned the size of the land, but I know that we got the documentation, the presentation for this late, but it is 1 acre, if I'm correct. So 1 acre, if I do my calculation really quickly, on my little app is about 4,040 square meters. So I wanted to say that specifically out loud so that the public could hear it, so that those families with private land can hear it. Again, I am here as a member of parliament, a representative of the people, which in turn means a representative of the youth, which is why this is a fantastic project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP de Weaver. I see the list is nearly done, but I have some points too. First of all, any initiative that will surpass the use of cell phones for the youth, I would support. And I have some few questions which I believe nobody took a remark on. While the youths are joining this training, is language an important factor? Is everything in Dutch, everything in English, or mix? Is it a choice the youths make to join this, or you choose them? And if you can say it out, how many of the youths who have gone through your training in the last 9 years, which I believe, are into these 6 signing entities with the VKS, KPMG, Marine, all of them? How many of your youths are in there now? And lastly, I do believe that this is a no-brainer for the land and to get this act going forward. I would see that most of the MPs have said the motions. So I believe that this meeting will be gone into a public meeting to get the motions in. So I will await your answers first. And would you need some time, or are you ready to get back to the answers right away?
Mr. Chairman, we are ready to proceed with our answers.
So let's have a 5 minutes break and get back. I need some break, 5 minutes break.
No problem, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we adjourn till 12:05. Meeting resumes at 12:05. Thank you. Welcome back. Before I give the floor to Ms. Peterson to answer the questions, I was going through my notes and I forgot one point, which is mandatory. I would like to ask Ms. Peterson if this can be a mandatory thing in all the schools, whether it be for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Can you think of that in the vision? Thank you, and Ms. Peterson, you have the floor for the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I give my answers, I will have our project leader, Mr. Blaze, state the questions that the MPs posed, and then I will then elaborate, or our assistant project leader will elaborate on the questions.
Thank you very much for granting us the opportunity and also for proposing the motion. We really appreciate it and we're humble for your assistance. Coming back to the first question that was asked by MP Westcott was who would be conducting the operational management of the law enforcement, and is there any requirements in terms of management by a certain group?
Before we start, I know everyone would like to know if presently we are receiving any support from government. I am sure that the MPs are aware. I am sure that the MPs are aware that this year, government, I'm going to say finally, and I do get some flack for saying finally, that this year we received a structural subsidy, not what we would love to see, but it is something that at least kinds of help with some of the burden that the Voice of the Youth in Maarten experience. So again, I would like to thank Government of St. Maarten for that structural subsidy going forth. The answer to MP Westcott is that government and SMDF is currently supporting us financially. And in terms of the operation and management of the facility, we are, once we have the property, the intention is to move our offices adjacent to the obstacle course. So therefore, we will be managing and operating it ourselves, because we are right there on the spot. And of course, it may require, not it may require, we know it will require the assistance of our brigade members to also assist with the upkeep of the facility. So in other words, it's kind of opened the door for our youngsters to have work on the obstacle course. I don't know if the information is sufficient or if it needs further elaboration.
MP Sarah, you would like to chime in on this?
Yes, please.
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my question had regarding the management had to do with are there any specific requirements for any person or persons who would manage it? You know, requirements, and that's why I made a connection with the law enforcement. So could you, for example, manage it, or persons designated by you? So that's where I was going with this specific question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah. Ms. Peterson, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So when you build a obstacle course, there are safety standards involved in the building and maintaining of the obstacle course. And because of that, it has to be built in according to the standards of the Netherlands in order for all our law enforcement agencies that falls under our Dutch system to be able to use it. And based on that, we will have inspectors coming in yearly. Yeah, I just wanted to double check. The inspectors will be coming in yearly in order to do the necessary inspection of the property and indicate what obstacles needs to be improved upon or whatever else is needed in terms of the running and managing of the facility.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, thanks for the answer, but since you offer the opportunity, I would just like to go back to the previous answer regarding the funding and to get confirmation that you receive funding from government and SMDF, or you receive funding from SMDS, which is financed by government. So if just that relationship can be explained, and then thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott. Ms. Peterson, you will have the floor to give the answers, but mostly everything should be verbal, not in nodding and all that, because all the talks are recorded here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we started 9 years ago, the first funding agency that supported the St. Maarten Youth Brigade was Samenwerkende Fondsen with the project Council for Caribische Jongeren. They were the first. But one of the criteria from Samenwerkende Fondsen was that the government of St. Maarten also needed to do their part. And therefore, St. Maarten Development Fund then came on board and has been supporting us with a grant, a yearly grant since then. And then recently, meaning 2022, the government of St. Maarten itself, under the Ministry of Education, gave us a structural subsidy to supplement the one that we lost from Samenwerkende Fondsen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. That was just for MP Sarah, or you have all the other answers?
No, that was for MP Sarah.
That was a sort of a clarification to answer that Mrs. Peterson started to give to my questions.
Yes.
Yeah, so she's busy with, they are busy with the questions.
Moving on to the second question, which was posed by MP Gums. Have you spoken with VRAMI and also regarding the discussions with the land with Vlan, have you also spoken with them as well? Regarding VRAMI, we have approached the ministry. We had a meeting with them together with the Council of Ministers, and we discussed this project. We proposed the same presentation, and also talked about the economic spin-offs and the diversification of the portfolio of St. Maarten with sports tourism, and also the events with team building. I don't know if you have any further questions.
Mr. Chair, sorry if I may, just a quick clarification on that.
Yes, MP Gums.
Was there feedback from them, or did they just receive the presentation and that's it? Like, was there actually feedback from the government then and the Ministry of Rami?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we did get feedback from the Ministry of Rami stating that they do have a suggestion of land opportunity for us. However, that was too small of a size. And after the meeting, they told us that there will be a follow-up. However, we have not received any follow-up. We have been following up with the Ministry of Rami in order for us to finally finalize a solution for us. However, we have come to the solution to come to Parliament to find assistance in order for us to receive some sort of opportunity or help for these different challenges that we are facing in our nation.
Thank you, Mr. Nelly. What I would suggest is all the questions what you got from them, you have made a note of those. Give your answers on each one of them for each MPs. And then after that, if there's any clarification needed, the MPs will take their questions and get you a clarification on that. So you just proceed with all the answers one time.
Okay.
You have the floor.
I also would like to elaborate on what Mr. Blaze just said concerning the meeting with Vrami. So initially we had, our first meeting was with the Minister of Vrami alone. We indicated which properties can work for us. The minister did indicate there was a piece of land, I believe, behind USM, but that piece of land was way too small to fit the project. We were promised that they will get back to us eventually, but we never got any word from them. We did request follow-up meetings, but have not heard back since. This meeting took place early on in February 2021, so which is more than a year ago that we are busy with government on this matter.
Regarding the question of noise pollution and light pollution, and also approaching the Plants family about land in Dutch Quarter, also in the area of Oyster Pond. I'll leave my colleague answer that question right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to first off thank Ms. MP Westcott about the fact of decentralization before I talk about the two other points. We don't expect and can't expect government to solve all our problems. Hence the reason for decentralization and having the whole reason for nonprofits is to pick up the slack where you guys, can't. And it's evident that it's something that we need. So I just want to thank you for that. In regards to the noise pollution, which I mentioned to Ms. MP De Weaver, yes, in regards to the location of the obstacle course, it's more for residents and the nature or the environment around which the obstacle course will be established. For the question concerning the approach, we did approach Ms. Astrid Plants as well. This was in 2021 about the obstacle course. We gave the presentation as well. And the response was that her plans that she has in place aren't happening now. And they would not want to basically implement a project in a location if they're unsure of their plans to proceed with the land that they have. Thank you.
Also, moving on to the proposal. Sorry about that. Also, moving on to the proposal is it actually this proposal from the foundation that has been spoken to the Department of Sports and NSI? And I would like to answer, Mr. Chairman, and state that we have spoken to the Department of NSI about this project. We had a meeting with them where we discussed potential collaboration on how we can get this project rolling together with the foundation. Specifically with Michael Cornett. We also approached the Department of Youth Affairs about this as well. Moving on to the question of MP Peterson, what is the total size of the project? That was answered by MP Ludmila. It is 1 acre, so 4,000 square meters. There was a question by MP Richardson, I believe, where he stated he would like to understand, no, by MP George, where he wanted to understand what do we mean by reduce inequalities, if that's correct. And I would like to state that what we mean by reduce inequalities is that we have the stigma here on the island that there's a lot of youth delinquencies and problems with our youth, that there's nothing to do. And youth employment is of concern of the government in this nation. And we have the proposal with our obstacle course, our members will be facilitating physical skills and activities for the public of St. Martin, therefore employing our youth and giving them something to do, and also employing them within our organization.
If I can add to that too, Mr. Chairman, the purpose as well of the obstacle course is that we want to bridge the gap between our youths and law enforcement here on St. Martin. There's a negative stigma associated with law enforcement towards the youths, and this is something that we see within the brigade as well. It's changing, but we also see that it's within the brigade, and we can, if it's in the brigade, then it's definitely prevalent amongst youths on St. Martin. Thank you.
And where it's concerned over logistics, where it's congested with traffic, especially in St. Peter's area. Would you like to answer that question?
Yes, in regards to the logistics, this is something that hasn't been taken into account as much, and we do appreciate that it's being brought up because questions always arise more often than not. For the logistics, the Rainforest Adventures seemed like the most appropriate place from the distance between law enforcement agencies on St. Martin, hence the reason for it, as well as the light and noise pollution plays a big factor in residential area. It's very, there's already a soccer field, there's Amelia Wilson Park, so it kind of makes sense to us that the obstacle course can be there as well. Not only that, is that the visibility of the obstacle course, everyone passing through that direction from the obstacle course, the kids that are passing will be more enticed and be like, hey, what is going on here? And would take more interest in wanting to join the brigade. So, thank you.
And talking about mitigating the logistics, we can always schedule appropriate times when there is high traffic or low traffic, when organizations or law enforcement can come in, and that's how we can manage the facility in terms of congestion of traffic. Also answering the question with the Friendside government, in order for us to obtain funds from R4CR or other funding agencies here on the Dutch side, there's a requirement where we have to get funding from the Dutch side, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's not possible for us to get funding from the Friend side as well if we're getting the funding from the Dutch funding agencies.
And another problem, Mr. Chairman, and another problem is that if we are asking government, which in this case we are, to support the organization through a landsbesluit, therefore you cannot have a institution that is a government support institution on the Dutch side having training on the French side, if that makes sense.
Following the question by Mr. Chairman, if the language will be solely in Dutch or will it be in English? And also if we choose the youth or if they join, how many youths have gone through the training in the law enforcement agencies? Our program right now is in Dutch for the commands of our Maarten. We follow the method of the VKS, which in turn follow the methods of the Dutch Royal Marines. In terms of our teaching methods, we teach in English. Our mentorship programs, our communication, whenever we send out emails or when we're communicating with parents or guardians, it's always in English. When it comes to the matter of the youths joining, or if they volunteer to come to our organization, they volunteer on the most part of it to join the St. Maarten Youth Brigade. Sometimes we do get suggestions from SGI and other law enforcement institute where they recommend certain youths to follow our program. In terms of how many youths went through this training and are currently in the law enforcement agencies, I don't believe we have a record of statistics in order for me to give you an actual figure of that. Right now, this is the first time that we have employed interns from the Netherlands, from Turkey, to come to our organization, and we are working on a database of statistics where we can provide government institutions and the public with accurate figures of our organization and youth. If there's anything else that you guys want to.
Sorry, just a clarification for our interns who are present. They are from the Netherlands, and we also have 2 other interns who work with the organization currently. One is from Turkey, and the other one is also, she's from St. Maarten, but she studies in Holland.
I just want to kind of jump back a little bit in reference to the question about VRAMI and rainforest. When we approach rainforest first before we had a meeting with VRAMI, so that we are well informed prior to the meeting. At that particular time, we were told by rainforest that the lot of land that we are looking for or are looking at is part of the parcel that they are in negotiation with government. Even though they said to us, you know, guys, if we were not at this juncture, we would be willing to lease it out to you guys directly, as they are currently doing with the section in front, the football court. But because it already under discussion with government, they were not able to move forth with us on it. Hence, our meeting then with VRAMI to ask to secure that lot of land. Also, during the ceremony, for those of you that attended the ceremony, you saw us give both the Minister of Education and Justice 2 draft proposal. They were the draft proposals for the Landsbesluit. Yes, for the Landsbesluit, to basically recognize the institution to become a breeding ground for law enforcement, but also to use us when you have disaster or search and rescue, missing persons, which we have already done, but now we want it on paper, in other words. Yeah, officially recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to mention that that was all the questions that we received.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson, Mr. Nelly, Mr. Michel, for all your answers. I would like to see if there's any other deliberations from any MPs. I see MP Westcott. MP Westcott, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and very, very briefly, I want to add something to the matter of the collaboration with the Front Side indirectly, and that has to do with, I am sure that the members of the Voice of Our Youth Foundation have taken note of a recent article in one of the French dailies with respect to training that has started for military training that has started for young persons on the French side. And that article evoked questions and comments such as, oh, it would have been a good thing if we had something like that over here. Others said, why only 5, etc. The point I want to make is that it's a good thing that you were able to have this presentation so that persons on St. Martin can see what is taking place in that regard here as well, when it comes to training, preparation, etc., etc. Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, many of my colleagues have indicated their impressions with respect to the graduation ceremony that was held. I have been to so many of them that I think from the onset and haven't missed much of them. I have seen this organization grow, but I don't think that I could have ever felt as proud seeing them graduate, etc., like I felt when I saw them show their talents at the Rotary District conference that was held. And that indeed was one that, and I can agree with my colleagues who said, you know, it gave you goosebumps. So, and yeah, that was really, really impressive. So, no, but I just wanted to make those 2 brief comments as I indicated in my request to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott. Is there any other member of parliament? I don't see any. So, Ms. Peterson, you have the floor to answer for MP Westcott.
Mr. Chair, in relation to the question the question that MP Sarah Westcott posed concerning the military, the youth military that is, I don't know if it's already established or that it's in the pipeline, but basically what we are trying to do on this side with the Landsbesluit is kind of form a youth academy, a military youth academy. But again, we need the support from government in order to do so. I also wanted to make a statement in regards to something that was said by MP Pantoflet about keeping our areas clean. The whole project about going into the community to clean community is our youngsters do live in those communities. So if you go with your youngster in your community, you are inspiring other youngsters who are coming out and seeing the St. Martin Youth Brigade cleaning and said, wait, I want to be part of this too. So it's not only, okay, everybody should keep their surroundings clean, but it also helps inspire the youngsters who are then looking up to our brigade members and said, I want to be part of this organization. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I see MP Rumu as well. Now, I needed to make another brief comment, which I actually wanted to do, but I went off on the front side track, so I need to get back to it.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson, and I believe MP Sarah would like to get the floor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to know if it is possible that the draft landsbesluit can be shared with Parliament. I would really like to see that approach. Mr. Chairman, you might or might not know that this matter of a youth brigade has a very long history in terms of within the Netherlands Antilles, there was supposed to be a ontwikkelingsbrigade. Guess what was the problem at the time? Land for establishment. At that time, we were looking, saying maybe then we could create one in Statia because Statia had the land, and then that was felt to be too military in the approach, and that then became the sociale vormingsplicht that we had. So there's a long history behind what is now, I hope, being accomplished, and including this project, this project here. So, Mr. Chairman, but actually that is to ask if we can see. I would really like to see the proposal for the landsbesluit in the landsbesluit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott. The next person I have is MP Rumo. MP Rumo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's just a brief comment as I listened to Mrs. Peterson talk about, going into the community and assisting with cleanups and so on. So I just wanted to share with you, if you haven't already had contact with them, but I know that the EPIC Foundation, they just started with their set of cleanups. Our district was the first, Cahill, and indeed they were talking about trying to, collaborate with different organizations and so on when it comes to cleanup. So I just wanted to make that suggestion to you, if you have not already made contact with them, that it's something that you should do so that they can also get that assistance from the Youth Brigade. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rumo. I see on the chat, MP Sarah wanted the floor again. Oh, okay. Ms. Peterson, are you ready to answer? Ms. Peterson, are you ready? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to answer the question about EPIC. We have not been in contact with EPIC as of recently, but I can tell you that the Cahill area was of great concern to us, seeing that me and my colleague visited that area one time, and we saw the amount of trash that was littered in the area, especially the location across from across from Koiman. Yes. And since we saw that, we immediately we wrote a project, which is to be funded by Culture funds, concerning the trash in that area. Not only that, but we did it in such a way where members in the community can come to help clean up the trash, as well as we do a art exhibition with the trash that is collected. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, in reference to the request of MP Westcott asking for the landsbesluit, we will be happy to furnish the MPs with a copy of that. I have to be careful. I have to say that it's a draft proposal because I don't want nobody to feel that we are dictating what the content of it, but it's a proposal that we presented to government, but we will be happy to share that with Parliament.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. If there are no more comments, I would like to thank the representative of Voice of Youth St. Maarten for their presence here today and for providing the necessary information. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I thank you all for your participation and hereby close this meeting.